Oh my goodness, y'all. Pull up a chair, lock the door, mute your phone, and get your snacks, because what Rick Ross just did to he is not a response. It is not a clapback. Baby, it is a coordinated strike. He looked at the biggest announcement of his whole year, a song with Eminem and unreleased Tupac vocals, and instead of laughing at the record like everybody expected, he reached into his chest and grabbed the one thing 50 Cent protects more than money. His loyalty story. His legacy story. His whole identity. And wait until you hear which woman's name Ross used as the weapon, because it is not who you think, and it changes everything about this feud. Let's get into all of it, because this mess deserves a full autopsy. Now before I get into what he said, I have to give you the backstory, because none of this makes sense without the backstory, and trust me, you need every piece of it. Hold on, this part is quick, but it matters. So, remember when 50 Cent got on Instagram and revealed that he has a brand new record tied to the upcoming Street Fighter movie? And not just any record. He said the track features Eminem, which already had the internet sitting up straight, because every time 50 Cent and Eminem get on a song together, it is an event. But then he said the third name. Tupac. Unreleased Tupac vocals, cleared by Tupac's estate, placed on the official theme rollout for a major Hollywood film. And 50 Cent made a point, a very specific point, to say the vocals are not AI. He wanted everybody to know this is real archive material, not some computer-generated ghost. Now on paper, that is a victory lap. A movie, a legend, a mentor, nostalgia, controversy, headlines for days. He created a whole cultural moment without dropping an album. On paper, baby, that is chess. But the second Tupac's name entered the chat, the temperature changed. Because Tupac is not a feature. Tupac is not a marketing tool. Tupac is a wound that never fully closed for this culture, and everybody knows it. Some fans heard opportunity. Other fans heard something that made their stomach turn. And Rick Ross? Rick, he heard a door opening. Now, let's be very clear about what Rick he could have done. Rick, he could have taken the easy road. He could have clowned the song before anybody heard a single second of it. He could have called it a gimmick, called it desperate, called it a veteran screaming for attention. That is the standard playbook, and honestly, that is what he would have done to him, because that is what he does to everybody. But he did not do that. And this is the part that made me sit all the way up in my chair. He aimed at the softest, most emotionally loaded spot in the entire announcement, and then he dragged Eminem and Courtney Kemp into the same strike. Yes, Courtney Kemp. The creator of power. We are getting there. Keep your seat. Because here's the thing about this feud, and y'all have to understand the history to feel the weight of this moment. 50 Cent and Rick Ross have been at each other's necks for years. This is not new. This is not fresh. This is a long, slow, grinding war that has survived album cycles, lawsuits, baby mama drama, and entire eras of hip-hop. And his method has never changed. He does not answer an insult. 50 Cent takes your insult apart piece by piece, finds the one corner of your image that can be humiliated in public, and drags the entire conversation over there. You talk about his music, he talks about your money. You talk about his loyalty, he talks about your sales. You laugh at one project, he laughs at your whole existence. The fight never stays where you want it. That is the 50 Cent doctrine, and it has worked for 20 years. So guess where the fight was sitting right before this Tupac announcement? The numbers. Baby, the numbers. The ugly, public, unspinnable numbers. Now I have to read you these receipts, because the receipts are the gasoline under this whole fire. Rick Ross dropped his album Set in Stone, and the first week came back at roughly 17,000 units. 17,000. And y'all, out of that 17,000, only about 2,000 were actual pure sales. 2,000 people walked into the store, so to speak, and bought the album outright. The rest was streaming crumbs. The album debuted somewhere in the 40s on the chart. 40s. For Rick Ross. For the boss. For the man who has built an entire public identity on being the biggest, the richest, the most luxurious, the man with the mansion so big it hosted a whole movie. And Curtis Jackson? Oh, he did what he does. 50 Cent got on Instagram and laughed. He posted the numbers. He posted the projections. He turned Rick his first week into a running joke in front of millions of people because that is the soft tissue, y'all. If Ross talks boss, 50 Cent checks the ledger. If Ross talks empire, 50 Cent asks what actually sold. If Ross talks luxury, 50 Cent asks what the property taxes look like. He understands something dark about internet warfare. You do not have to prove the other man is broke. You only have to make the audience smirk at the possibility that the flex is a little softer than advertised. That is it. That is the whole trick. And he has been running that trick on Rick Ross since some of y'all were in middle school. Now, to Rick his credit, and I do mean minimal credit, he tried to reframe the whole thing. Ross got on camera and said real hip-hop lovers should never get caught up in the propaganda and the fake bot numbers. He dismissed the 17,000 as fake math. He said the streaming era has distorted what success even means, and that the long game, the brand, the businesses, the durability, that is the real scoreboard. And listen, in theory, that is not a stupid answer. The long game argument is a real argument. Artists have watched their opening week get eaten alive by perception, and then watched their catalog pay them for a decade. He was trying to move the goalposts from 1 week of numbers to 20 years of empire. But here's the problem with that, and it's a big problem. When you moralize numbers, the audience starts auditing your numbers. And when the Kid Mero is out here clowning you for calling Drake washed while your own album is doing cardio just to stay on the chart, baby, the long game speech starts sounding like a long excuse. So he was not swinging from solid ground. He was swinging while his own credibility was being tested in public, in real time, by his own scoreboard. Remember that. Hold that. Because now we get to the pivot. The pivot is where this whole thing goes from a food fight to something with teeth. Rick, he recorded a message, and in that message, he did two things that turned this into a 5-alarm situation. First, Ross told 50 Cent, and I am paraphrasing the energy here, be loyal to the black woman the way you are loyal to Eminem. Read that again. Be loyal to the black woman, meaning Courtney Kemp, the woman who created power, the woman who wrote the empire that his whole television identity is built on, the way you are loyal to Eminem. And second, Ross told 50 Cent to let Tupac rest in peace. Y'all, do you understand what Ross just did there? Because I need you to understand the architecture of this attack, because it is actually surgical. He did not clown the song. He did not clown the numbers. Ross looked at his two most sacred public relationships, Eminem on one side, the Power franchise on the other, and he said, your loyalty has a pattern, and the pattern has a problem. That is not a joke. That is an accusation about character. And accusations about character are the one kind of attack he cannot laugh off with a meme, because memes do not answer moral questions. Now, why Courtney Kemp? Why did that name land like a brick? Sit back down, because this is the part the blogs are dancing around, and we are not dancing. We are diving. 50 Cent recently sat down for a big interview, and in that interview 50 Cent opened up about the Power years. And 50 Cent described real friction behind the scenes. Friction with Courtney Kemp. Friction around Omari Hardwick. Friction around creative decisions, around how long certain characters should live, around credit, around whose vision was actually steering the ship. And in his telling, and I want to be fair here because the truth matters more than the mess, the problem was that the public fused the whole show to his face. People treated Power like a 50 Cent property. He was the brand, he was the marketing, he was the Instagram machine keeping the show in the conversation every single week. And he is not wrong about that. Anybody who lived through those Power years watched 50 Cent carry that show's publicity on his back like it was a cross. Sunday after Sunday, episode after episode, 50 Cent was the loudest voice in the room. But, and it is a big but, Courtney Kemp created that world. Courtney Kemp wrote that world. Courtney Kemp built Ghost and Tommy and Tasha and the whole chessboard on the page before a single camera rolled. And when 50 Cent tells the story now, years later, in a way that frames the creator as the friction, as the obstacle, as the difficult one, while he stands in the frame as the loyal soldier, the protector, the man who rides for his people, baby. That is a gap. And Ross saw the gap. Ross drove a whole truck through the gap. And here's why the Eminem comparison cuts so deep, because this is the emotional core of the whole thing, so stay with me. His loyalty to Eminem is not casual. It is not industry. It is origin story. Eminem believed in 50 Cent when the industry had one foot out the door on 50 Cent Eminem, and Dr. Dre signed 50 Cent and changed the entire scale of his life. And for over 2 decades, through every beef, every lawsuit, every bankruptcy headline, every troll war, he has never once let anybody play with Eminem's name. Never. It is the one relationship he treats like scripture. So when he says, be loyal to the black woman the way you are to Eminem, he is not comparing 2 friendships. He is asking why one kind of loyalty gets 20 years of public reverence and the other gets a post-mortem interview. And that question, whether it is fair or not, is now sitting in the middle of the internet like a loaded weapon. Now hold on, because I know what some of y'all are typing. Some of y'all are typing, well, Courtney Kemp herself said years ago that her and 50 Cent were extremely close, that the social media drama was noise. And that is true. She did say that. But people grow, partnerships sour, and the version of the story being told in 2026 is not the version being told back then. The question is not whether they were close. The question is who gets centered when the story gets retold, and who gets left holding the label of difficult. That is an industry question, y'all. That is bigger than this beef. That is about how black women creators get discussed after the hit ships and the men with the bigger megaphones absorb the legacy. And he knew exactly what he was doing when he picked that up off the table. But wait, because now we have to talk about the other half of the strike. The Tupac half. And this is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, because the Tupac question is the one place where even his most loyal soldiers start shifting in their seats. Let me be precise about the facts first, because precision matters with a dead legend. The reporting around this record says the vocals are genuine, unreleased Tupac material. Not AI. Not a voice model. Not a synthetic resurrection. Real vocals from the archive, cleared and approved by Tupac's estate for the Street Fighter film. And that matters, because it removes the ugliest version of this concern immediately. Nobody is puppeting Tupac. Nobody is manufacturing new sentences in Tupac's mouth. This is estate-sanctioned archive material. There is even talk floating around that the track builds off something in the lane of Ambitions as a writer, which, if true, tells you the estate is reaching into the vault deliberately, not carelessly. But here's the thing an estate can do, and here's the thing an estate cannot do. And estate can manage rights. And estate can sign papers. And estate can confirm legality. What an estate cannot do, what no estate on this earth can do, is recreate intention. Nobody can ask Tupac if he wanted his voice on a movie-theme rollout in 2026, sitting next to 50 Cent and Eminem, inside a marketing campaign for a video game adaptation. Nobody can ask him. And that silence, that permanent unanswered question, is exactly the discomfort he reached for. When he said, "Let Tupac rest in peace," he was not inventing a feeling. Ross was locating a feeling that already exists in millions of fans and amplifying it into a weapon. And that, y'all, is the smartest kind of attack there is, because the audience does half the work for you. The strongest punches are the ones the crowd was already holding. And I have to say the uncomfortable part out loud, because we do truth here even when the truth is messy. There are fans who will never in their life defend Rick Ross on album numbers, who will never cape for the boss talk, who think the 17,000 is hilarious, who will still nod their heads slowly when the subject becomes Tupac's rest and Tupac's dignity. That is how loaded that name is. Tupac makes strange allies. Tupac makes people who agree on nothing suddenly agree on reverence. He knew that. He banked on that. Now, before anybody crowns Ross the moral champion of hip-hop, pump your brakes, because we have to audit the messenger too. That is the rule. Everybody gets audited. Because the minute you moralize a beef, the audience starts checking your own consistency. And the question hanging over Rick Ross right now is a real one. Is Ross defending Courtney Kemp because he genuinely cares about creator credit and black women in television? Or did Ross notice that 50 Cent had already opened that wound in an interview, and he simply picked up the sharpest object within reach? Is Ross protective of Tupac's legacy, or is Tupac's legacy just the one topic where he could get people who would never stream Set in Stone to still co-sign his paragraph? I am not answering that. I am asking that. Because the internet can smell opportunism almost as fast as it can smell hypocrisy, and once people suspect the morality is a costume, the valid point stays valid, but the messenger gets real easy to dismiss. And Ross has another exposure here that nobody is talking about, so let me talk about it. Every extra layer he added to this attack gave 50 Cent another door to run through. Think about it. He mentioned Courtney Kemp, now everybody is revisiting power. He mentioned Eminem, now everybody is revisiting his origin story, which is the strongest ground he has. He mentioned Tupac, now there is a whole philosophical debate about posthumous music that does not have a villain, just two defensible positions. And he mocked the rollout, which means he can now swing back at his products, his properties, his numbers, his everything, and his whole career proves he is most dangerous when the fight has a dozen lanes instead of one. He built a cathedral of arguments. He specializes in arson. Now let's flip the board, because his position in all this is not weak, and anybody telling you it is weak is selling you a narrative. He can stand on facts that are actually sturdy. The estate approved the record. The vocals are authentic. The placement is a major film. The feature is his mentor of 20+ years. That lets 50 Cent frame himself not as a grave robber, but as a curator, a man extending culture, keeping Tupac's voice alive for a generation that streams more than it reads. And whether you buy that framing or not, you have to admit it is a stronger defense than anything involving AI. 50 Cent also does not need to win the moral argument, and this is the part people keep missing. 50 Cent does not need everybody to agree with him. 50 Cent needs everybody to stay curious until the song drops. That is it. Controversy is not a leak in this rollout, y'all. Controversy is the rollout. The same person typing this is disrespectful is the same person pressing play at midnight. And 50 Cent knows that. He has built a whole second career on knowing that. And that is the hidden machinery under this entire story. So let me pull the curtain all the way back. He wants you to read this announcement as desperate, disloyal, and morally stained. He wants you to read it as historic, cinematic, and impossible to ignore. And here is the dirty little secret of the attention economy. Both of those readings feed the exact same machine. Outrage and curiosity are the same currency, y'all. Anger streams the song too. Disgust streams the song too. The blogs frame the conflict, the fans turn the discomfort into discourse, the group chats do the marketing for free, and the algorithm, baby, the algorithm does not care if you showed up furious or fascinated. It only cares that you showed up, stayed, argued, and came back tomorrow. Every person quote tweeting his message is a street team member for a song they claim to be offended by. Ross may have landed a real point and still be working for the other side's promo budget. That is the trap. That has always been the trap with him. You do not beat him by making noise. You make noise and he invoices you. And I need y'all to sit with this, because it is the part that refuses to be laughed away. The Courtney Kemp layer is different. Sneaker jokes evaporate. Mansion jokes evaporate. Sales jokes evaporate by next week. But credit, authorship, and how a Black woman creator gets positioned in the retelling of a franchise that changed Black television, that does not evaporate. There are viewers who think 50 Cent was just honestly describing a familiar power struggle, the kind every hit show has. There are viewers who think he exposed a genuine blind spot in how he curates his own legend. And there are viewers, and honestly I might be in this camp, who think both things are true at the same time. He can be right that the public fused the show to his face, and Courtney Kemp can still deserve louder reverence than she gets when the story is told. Both. Simultaneously. That complexity is why this fight is sticking to the wall when 1,000 other rap spats slid right off. So now everything comes down to the next move, and the next move is genuinely fascinating, because both men are standing in a trap of their own design. If he answers with pure jokes, 50 Cent stays in his comfort zone, gets his laughs, trends for a day, and quietly looks like he ducked the one serious question on the table. If he answers the Courtney Kemp point directly and substantively, he sharpens the power debate and gives the story a whole second life. If 50 Cent ignores the moral layer completely and just clowns his numbers again, the culture laughs, and then a certain segment of the audience files it as a dodge. And Ross has the mirror image problem. If Ross keeps stacking angles, Tupac, loyalty, credit, sneakers, sales, he starts looking like he is throwing the whole kitchen and hoping something leaves a mark. But if Ross narrows down to one clean argument, he becomes predictable, and predictable is the one thing you can never be against him. The very thing that made his attack powerful, the width of it, is the same thing that makes it survivable. A dozen spinning blades means a dozen targets, and history says 50 Cent would rather fight in chaos than in court. And that brings us to the real reason this chapter feels bigger than their average exchange. It was never about who said the meaner thing. It is about who controls the frame. For one full news cycle, he controlled the frame. He took what should have been his victory lap, a movie, a legend, a mentor, and he dirted it with questions about death, loyalty, gratitude, and who gets left holding the bag when a man curates his own mythology. That was effective. I will give Ross that. It was effective. But frame control against him is like holding a handful of water. 50 Cent's genius, and it is a genius even if it is a villainous genius, is making the audience forget the original charge by entertaining them with a brand new one. So the real winner of this round is whoever keeps the argument alive the longest, and right now there is no shortage of argument. Should a state approval settle the Tupac question, or does paperwork not equal blessing? Was Ross defending Courtney Kemp or weaponizing Courtney Kemp? Was 50 Cent honestly narrating a messy collaboration or repackaging it to center himself? Is Ross redefining success or just running from his own scoreboard? And underneath all of it, did this whole controversy just manufacture 10 million first-day streams for a song most people would have heard once and scrolled past? Because that last question is the whole ballgame. If the record drops and it is actually strong, if Eminem delivers, if the Tupac vocals sit right in the mix, if the Street Fighter placement bangs the way a theme should bang, then this entire backlash becomes mythology. The song is no longer a soundtrack placement. The song becomes the record that made the culture fight about Tupac's legacy, Eminem's loyalty, 50 Cent's motives, his morality play, and the politics of one of the biggest black franchises in television history. All before anybody heard a single bar. That is a legendary rollout. But if the song lands flat, y'all, if the song is mid, then his mockery gains retroactive superpowers. People will say the controversy was louder than the art. People will say 50 Cent stacked 3 of the biggest names in rap history to produce something smaller than its own headline. And that is why, after all this noise, all this framing, all this moral warfare, the pressure is now sitting on the only place he has ever truly wanted the pressure. The music. So now I need to hear from y'all, because this one is genuinely split down the middle and the comments are about to be a war zone. Did Rick Ross expose a real contradiction in how 50 Cent handles loyalty and credit, or did Ross accidentally executive produce the biggest moment of him's year by making this record impossible to ignore? Should a state approval be the final word on Tupac, or should the culture get a vote? And when this track finally lands, what is going to matter more, the song itself, or everything we all now think the song represents? Drop your side in the comments. Tell me if you are Team Rosie or Team Fifth, and do not be a fence rider today, because there is no fence left. It burned down. And keep your notifications close, because he has not responded yet, and when 50 Cent responds, we are going to be right back in this chair together, door locked, snacks ready. Talk to y'all later.